How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Every Other Week RPG Limit Breaks podcast. I am your host alongside my good friend, TinyTim78. How you doing today, bud?
Hello there, Ghoul. Hello there, folks. Yes, my name is TinyTim78. I'm doing great, thank you. I am really looking forward to this. This is going to be a fantastic time. We have a very special guest. We're going to be discussing all things Kingdom Hearts. So welcome, the wonderful Bizkit047. Bizkit, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, hi. Thank you for having me. I'm sure this will be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. Like, basically, as soon as this podcast was pitched, one of my first things was we got to get Biz on. We got to talk some Kingdom Hearts. You know, get some tips, some tricks, all the behind the scenes, tales from one of the best. Not even just Kingdom Hearts speedrunners, one of the best action game speedrunners just in the world. I'm going to stroke that ego just a little bit if you don't mind. So I guess let's talk about your history. How did you get into playing Kingdom Hearts at a high level? What led to that?
Well, I mean, when I was starting, I think it was back in, 2012, doing other speedruns, I eventually was like, oh, I love Kingdom Hearts 2 a lot. Why don't I speedrun that? I don't know why it took me a little while to start doing that, but I just jumped right in. And, there wasn't much for resources back then to go into, so it was kind of just like, throwing darts at the wall with the older routes and trying to make it faster kind of deal.
Just to interject there then, but you mentioned that obviously you started speedrunning it. Did you play the games? What was your first exposure to the series? I'm assuming you played the games casually, or did you play them when they first came out? Or how did you first sort of play the games? And what was your first initial reaction when you saw these games? Because I remember being around when Kingdom Hearts originally came out, and I remember how big it was and how impactful it was. It'd be great to get your thoughts on that.
Well, so Square being good at marketing back then for Kingdom Hearts, I was introduced to it from a commercial where it showed Final Fantasy characters, and me being a big Final Fantasy fan back then, I was like, oh, I got to get this game. It has, they showed Sephiroth in the commercial. I was like, oh my God, awesome. So I picked the first one up pretty much after release, and I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Fairly unique for its time.
I think there are
Disney's
times in my life I have seen an advertisement or a news story in a game magazine or a magazine and thought, that is not real. They are lying to me. There's no way they would ever do this. Kingdom Hearts showing up in, oh my God, it was Disney Adventures magazine. My parents used to subscribe to me too when I was a kid. They said, oh, Kingdom Hearts or Final Fantasy characters meet up with Disney characters in an RPG. I'm like, that is not real. That is not a real thing that you're doing. And then, it very much is a real thing. Or I was like, oh, okay. I don't think I actually played the game until Chain of Memories, like personally, because I didn't play the PS2 when I was a kid. But if anybody's curious, the other time I thought that was not that went through my head was when they showed the first image of the Wind Waker. I said, no, that's not what they're doing with Zelda. There's no way. Little kid me did not realize that you could actually change art styles. Apparently.
The one that I remember advert-wise, very quickly, going off on a tangent here, is the actual Final Fantasy VII. I remember Final Fantasy VII being advertised and seeing it and being, okay, that's a bit different. And because remember, in the UK, Final Fantasy VII was the first game that was released. We never had any of the earlier games.
Oh, they never released 6 there?
So, no, Final Fantasy VII was the first one, I think, in Europe. It was the first Final Fantasy released. So, I remember it coming out. I remember it being very, very, very big. But anyway, off topic. But
that's kind of funny because there's so many European runners of Mystic Quest. We're getting off topic here a little bit, but it's still just kind of a fun tangent there. But so you got into these games. You speedrun other games first, you said? Like you got into speedrunning and then you got into speedrunning Kingdom Hearts. It wasn't the other way around?
Yeah, I started with SM64, like probably most other people back then. So I didn't think of RPGs right away. So I was doing like FF8 and then KH2, lots of fun.
Oh, you speedrun Final Fantasy VIII as well?
For a little bit, yeah. I think for probably, I don't know if it was a whole year, but it was quite a while.
Wow,
still.
Okay.
That would have been a long run at the time, though, surely. What sort of length of runs was that when you were doing it?
On the PS2, it was over 8 hours. Like, I think it was when I started near almost 9 hours. It was hard. It was a hard run.
Yeah.
I'm sure that run's changed quite a bit in the last, 12 years probably. We're getting old now. That's a fun thought.
Yeah. Can't quite do it like I used to as far as long runs go, I would say.
So which Kingdom Hearts did you start with then? You picked up, was it 2? Did you go to 1?
For runs, I started with KH2, yeah, and then when the PS3 1.5 came out, that's when I started running 1FM a bit, because it's a relatively short run and
Right.
still pretty fun. Yeah, but I still prefer running KH2. I love the diversity in the strats and whatnot. It's just really fun to execute the strats at like a higher level.
Yeah, so let's go into that. So you started so one thing about Kingdom Hearts, if anybody isn't familiar, is they can't stop patching the game. Every version of Kingdom Hearts is completely different than the others as far as like different strategies, what's good, what's not. Did you start with 2 English? Had you already been one of the savants that imported a Japanese copy of 2FM?
Well, I already had 2FM casually before that, but I did start with KH2 English because that's what everybody was running. So, it was beginner mode back then. That was the fastest way to play KH2. So I started with that. Over a 4-hour run a little bit.
Right. So that's like, what's the difference between beginner mode and I guess like probably proud mode would have been a lot longer back in the day, of course. Did people mess with like the proud mode stuff at all? Was it just like, nah, we're all just doing beginner because that's what everyone else is doing?
Not on a serious level, because proud mode you do less damage and it makes the fights just like feel like double in length. But I mean, I think these days the few people who have done like proud runs, there are like viable strats that it's not going to make it nearly as fast as beginner, but you can get by in the fights. It's not as like miserable as it used to be for trying to run that.
Right. So about when did like the big community shift over to like 2FM end up happening, where people kind of realized that like, hey, this version of the game just kind of has like more interesting balance going on with it?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what year we all kind of started swapping over, but there was other runners like Bloody and Riz and people like that were running it. So then I jumped on it, and that had critical mode out the gate, and that's what we all generally prefer to run because beginner mode is it's still fun, but adding in the element of being able to have to survive constantly is a lot more probably enticing for viewers. So I just always have enjoyed higher difficulties, and of course running level 1 as well.
Mm-hmm.
What was your sort of first? So you say level 1 and then critical. I mean, there is a level 1 critical category, isn't there?
Yes, there's regular crit any percent and then level 1 crit any percent.
Yeah, I mean the amount of work that must take, the amount of practice. When you were sort of at you're sort of practicing and getting used to the run and whatever, how much did you practice? How long did you find, or how long did you churn out runs? Because there must be an amazing amount. I mean, as you say, that's a pretty high difficult sort of ceiling,
right?
Skill ceiling.
Yeah, so I mean, like going a little bit back in history for what I used to do, I used to casually do level 1, like no damages on like all the super bosses and throwing in restrictions and stuff. So going into running level 1, it wasn't that bad for me back then because like I was already really familiar with how level 1 works. So it was basically just a matter of like fine tuning the strats and learning how to consistently try to survive while doing strats.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's like always one of my favorite things when you watch a good player do the level 1 runs is it is that balance between going fast, not dying, and you'll see that it's pretty much what percentage of stuff in that is just like you just get like one shot and you got to retry the fight, or is it a lot of it like you have like 2 hits because of like the once more and stuff like that?
Well, on level 1, you don't get second chance or once more in KH2. So you do get one-shotted a fair amount, but not super often. Like, a lot of it is two-shotting by stronger attacks. So sometimes we are allowed to, get hit and survive, but, usually it's 2 decently strong attacks and you're out. You're retrying to fight, which, there's no retry in Kingdom Hearts 2 like there is for the rest of the series afterwards. So sometimes you'd have to, walk back to the fight, which could be a big time waster.
When do you reckon that then the sort of community, because obviously Kingdom Hearts speedrunning is still very popular today. across all the various games. But when do you think the community, or when did you first start really working with the community to refine routes and to learn and to whatever? And then maybe going on then, what about showcases at marathons, for example, your GGQ run?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say it had to have probably been like 2013 or something when I started running it, and I was pretty much immediately involving myself with the the speedrunning community for it and working on strats and whatnot, and we did a lot of fine tuning with the older strats that we thought at the time were the best. Obviously it's changed a lot since then. Yeah, it was definitely a community effort. It wasn't just like one person coming up with everything, but it was a lot of fun. It looked like everybody that was running it had a good time coming up with, that's actually going on right now. With level 1, there's a collection of like 3 people and then a little bit of myself, where they're trying to really come up with faster strats, and we've had like pretty sizable breakthroughs in the route recently that
really
now we have like new records kind of just happening between the PC and PS5 version over the last months.
What's changing then? Because I mean, I thought you guys had broken this game down to like its very pieces. What are y'all doing now that's new?
I mean, a lot of it is just the ether routes changing and fine tuning fights to make them more consistent, instead of just accepting that it can't be done. So we keep trying out different things. Like what happens if we have what if we put an ether here instead of here, or what if we have this ability on our party member? Like, does it help us more, or does it actually hurt us? And it's been a lot of like just optimizing based on that. That's cutting down the time a bit.
Do you have an example fight, just out of curiosity? That's
I mean, I probably have a couple. It's like, I know, for example, Hostile Program, the Hostile Program fight, they've been working hard on trying to make that a very fast and consistent fight. Like now they use limit form on it instead of, we used to use like Master Genie, and it's faster. There's another big one. I'm trying to think where we would use. I know like the Riku fight in Land of Dragons now is more fine-tuned to be less random as well. There's definitely like a collection of them that are getting kind of broken open now, where we're trying to collab, because it used to be like player preference on what we believed we were comfortable doing, but now it's like we're trying to, they're all trying to say like, we need to do this because this is objectively more consistent, faster, and better, even if it might be like harder or more chance of like killing the run if you mess up or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of makes sense, especially given like the sheer difficulty. Like, I think the percentage of people that have even been able to complete the game on level 1 is relatively low in the grand scope of people that have played Kingdom Hearts 2. So then also the people that are capable of doing that quickly probably all have individual things they learned from their time doing that. And yeah, I could see that actually being something that people kind of, this is what I'm used to doing, so I'm going to do this for now, and just kind of becomes part of your routine. So it's interesting that it's like you guys are finally dialing in now and saying, no, this is definitely the fastest way to do this fight and what we should be doing going forward. So that's really interesting, though. I did not realize that was going on behind the scenes of stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like a recent development. KBM is one of the the top runners right now for level 1. He started a Discord group of the 4 of us that run level 1 currently at a high level, and it's just been a lot of like, we just keep throwing out like, hey, like when this fight goes wrong, what do you guys do, or like what are you doing to prevent it? I see this never happens to you, stuff like that. And being able to talk and communicate about those kind of problems makes a huge difference, because then we all kind of learn, oh, I guess we've been kind of like, oh, you've been doing this right the whole time, I've been doing it wrong. So yeah, it's just over the last like month roughly, it's been kind of nuts seeing the level of trying to optimize every little fight to be perfect.
I absolutely love that the fact that this is coming up for a nearly 20-year-old game, and community is still finding new tricks, and it proves the longevity, certainly of this sort of game, right, of RPGs in general. I honestly feel RPG speedruns are a fantastic example of there's always something more. There's always something more you're going to find. And as new people come along into the community, and as old people come back, perhaps, and as you say, the collaboration, working together. Yeah?
You cut out, I think, a little bit in the middle of that.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just saying how the collaboration, the fact that this is nearly a 20-year-old game, and the fact that the game is still being pursued and broken down is absolutely amazing. And I love the longevity of certainly the RPGs in general, but the Kingdom Hearts series has got to be one of the top ones, really, I think.
Yeah, every time somebody gets a new record in any Kingdom Hearts speedrun category, we're always like, that's going to be the perfect run, unbeatable, and then we always seem to manage to find a way to have it beaten. So it seems like it's always possible.
I think we're having a couple tech issues. That cut out for you as well, Tim?
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh, man. It's a little unfortunate, but yeah, it's definitely interesting considering that. I mean, Kingdom Hearts isn't just, a series that people, it's not like, people haven't touched this game for a while. I mean, it's probably one of the most speedrun RPGs of all time.
Oh,
up there with the likes of like Pokemon Red and stuff.
There we go.
So.
Apologies for the tech issue, folks.
Yeah,
so we'll sort them out.
Apologies. This is
not just me.
vMix is working fine, apparently. It's just Discord.
Oh.
That's good then.
All right. Yeah, 1 second. We'll let us sort these out just a little bit, guys. All right, we are back. Apologies for that. Apparently, Discord was having a bit of a silly on us, and we tried jumping to a new server for Discord. We're going to see what that does, see if that fixes things, and we're going to go from there. Apparently, it wasn't cutting out to the stream at all because Ash's stuff was working just fine. So we will see how that does. But again, thanks again to Ash, who does all the tech work for a large majority of these. Does absolutely incredible stuff in general for the marathon.
Yeah.
Could not do this without them. So.
Yeah, massive shout outs to everyone involved, especially Ashen. Anyway, let's pick up where we were. We were talking about a little bit about the community. But I do have another question regarding the games, Bizkit, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I know that primarily you focused on Kingdom Hearts 2, but obviously I believe you've run Kingdom Hearts 1 as well. Have you run any other games in the series at all?
Yeah, outside of Cage. I mean, I've done almost all of them, I think, at one point, even if it was like short-lived. Like I did Recom for a little bit. I did Birth by Sleep, Aqua's story. I technically did all of them once. Let's see. I did something in Kingdom Hearts 3 at some point. I think I might have did level 1 once or twice.
Nice.
Yeah, so I had a good, I think I just skipped out on I didn't run Days. I only had that on emulator. DDD, when the port came out to PS4, I definitely ran that for a little bit, but eventually dropped that. Yeah, I think pretty much most of them, yeah.
Usually you come right back to 2, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's the one I tend to have the most fun with. I mean, the Kingdom Hearts 3, the data.org category is relatively fun, I guess, with all pro codes on, but yeah, intensive category to do.
Intense for the person who says, "Oh yeah, I'm just casually doing level 1, no big deal." This one's actually a little bit too intense for me to do all the time.
Yeah.
Would you say 2 is your favorite game in the series then, obviously?
As a whole, yeah. But for Kingdom Hearts 3, the Remind DLC with all the super bosses, I think are incredibly fun, and I find them actually more fun than Kingdom Hearts 2's data.org fights. But they're both still fun, so either way.
What's your favorite in the series, Ghoul? Have you got an extensive history with the series?
I have played everyone in the series. I have a pretty weird favorite. It's actually one that I've been wanting to speedrun for a long time, just haven't ever gotten around to it. Days is my favorite Kingdom Hearts by far. I think it's, granted, a lot of that is story related. I think it's like one of the few games in the series that has like an actually really good story. As weird as that sounds, but I find that like Days focuses in on like just a couple of like really specific character relationships, and it's got some of like the weird Japanese portable game syndrome for like pacing issues and stuff, but I adore that game to bits. Roxas's heavy pants aside, as Spike used to say.
I think it's a good story too, and so.
It's funny. I did go back to it, and I'm like, wow, he still has the heavy pants from Kingdom Hearts 2. He still cannot jump to save his life, even on the 3DS game, which is funny because you're also like, not only are his pants really heavy, so he can't jump, he's also like weirdly floaty as well. And I'm like, okay,
yeah, you don't notice how bad it is to control Roxas in Kingdom Hearts 2 until you try to run the game, and then you're like, oh my god, this is awful. When can I be Sora?
Well, when I first played the game, that was my reaction, but it was more of a case of, who the heck is this? I don't want to play this character, I want to play with Sora. And I think a lot of casual players would have had the same reaction when the game first came out.
Yeah, it was a little rough. People didn't really like the Roxas World sequence because it kind of dragged on a bit much where you weren't really seeing Sora, which is what a lot of people wanted. So, yeah, it wasn't super well received, which is probably why they kind of like stopped doing that going forward.
Yeah, well, it's ironic because I was the exact same way when I first played Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, oh my god, can we get past this stupid Roxas kid?
Yes!
I want to go to the Disney worlds. And then it's like, and now of course my favorite character in the series is probably Roxas, and it's by far my favorite game. It's like, oh, well, that's changed a little bit over time. So, which I guess that's good. You know, kind of redeem a character with a later game. So, but yeah, it's one of those games I've like wanted to do for a long time, just never got around to doing. And I know it's like actually like, I don't know how familiar you are with the speedrun biz, but I know it's actually like a pretty interesting speedrun. A lot of like really, you take a lot of intentional damage in it because of the way that the limits work in that game, where you want to get to a low health and kind of just spam them almost because they're by far the best thing you can be doing most of the time.
Yeah, I've seen that kind of stuff, yeah.
So, unfortunately, it means a lot of low health sounds as well, which very infamous how the Kingdom Hearts... what do you want to call it? The siren goes off when you're in low health. Yeah,
it's kind of annoying. Yeah.
it always reminded me, and I'm sure it reminded a lot of people. When you get the siren, it reminded me of Pokemon, the Pokemon Red Bar. That's immediately what I associated it with.
I love all the stupid edits people do where they'll go like, they'll take the Pokemon Red Bar, the Kingdom Hearts siren, the Sonic the Hedgehog drowning music and just mix them all together. It's like the most anxiety-inducing sound ever. It's like, oh my god, why?
Yeah, they probably should have that be an optional thing from now on.
I'm sure you can mod it out now with the PC version.
Probably.
Which I guess is actually another kind of fun thing to talk about. What all changed with the PC version? Has that kind of made running the games in general better than it has been in the past? Worse? Again, like Kingdom Hearts has a very weird history with different versions. Because I mean, we had the PS2 version, then there was the weirdness with the PS3 version and the loading glitches because the Blu-ray is a terrible disc format for loading video games, and then obviously the PS4 version with the frame rate issues and everything else that came with that port, and then now the PC version, which I hear has strange things, for lack of a better term.
Well, as far as Kingdom Hearts 2 goes, nobody runs the PS2 version anymore because the PS4 version is just way too fast, and it's just very convenient and easily accessible, of course. The PC version is basically the same port. It has, I think it has like a big audio quirk, which is kind of annoying, where if you're doing like an AoE attack on a bunch of enemies at once, it gets very loud for some reason, and they haven't fixed that yet. But I think it also, because it's a PC port, it also was more prone to crashing too. But it is still run a decent amount because the community allows a gummy skip mod in there, so you don't have to sit through the 3 to 4 minute gummy missions that are forced. So it saves like about 20 minutes, and there's a load remover for the timer, so it's a different timing method, but it's also a faster run. So it's different than the PS4 and 5 version, but it's there's still both solid ways to do KH2. As far as Kingdom Hearts 1 goes, I believe the PC version got rid of the opening cutscene, allows you to skip it at least, unlike the PS3 and 4 version.
That's nice.
And the original PS2 one, you couldn't skip any of the cutscenes until the Japanese 1FM version on PS2, where you had to die to a fight first to be able to skip it, so it wasn't really viable for runs. So yeah, the PS3 version did a lot of a good service to running KH1 going forward. And PC is really solid to run it because I'm pretty sure you can skip that cutscene. So every time you reset a run, you don't have to sit through that opening cutscene for like 3 minutes or something.
And mute your VOD for the rest of the day as well if you forget to mute it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, and Xbox I believe too also lets you skip it. Maybe they'll just patch it in eventually to all of them, but
I still think Kingdom Hearts 1 has one of my favorite little like this is why speedrunning is hilarious sometimes thing where Spike accidentally died in the middle of a gummy ship mission and found a time save because of it. Which is still one of the all-time funniest things that's ever happened in speedrunning.
Yes, I feel like he's done that twice in Kingdom Hearts 1. He had the Agrabah escape thing where I think he found out dying is faster there, and then the gummy mission, I think, where if you die at a certain point on one of them, it actually just completes it for you for some reason. Probably an oversight.
Talking of glitches, I can't remember what it's called. It's quite a famous one in Kingdom Hearts 1. It's the sort of cutscene glitch. And you know about the sort of origins of that and when that was first? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Oathkeeper scene you're talking about?
Oathkeeper, yeah, that's the one. Yep.
I don't remember if I was the one that found it. It's like maybe I might have been the one that found it. I can't quite remember, but it was a really bizarre side effect of dodge rolling at a very specific time on a cutscene trigger. And it just completely breaks the and it breaks most of the cutscene where Sora's like programmed to move certain ways, but you kind of fall off track of that, and then he starts doing like actual attacks and moves during the cutscene, and it's incredibly funny the result of that because it's just completely desynced from a sensical.
That reminds me. I gotta look this up now. This isn't related to Kingdom Hearts, but I know Biz, you're a big FF7 and FF7 Rebirth fan. Did you see the recent Twitter clip that happened to this? Where they messed with the cutscene in the demo by walking a bunch of boxes in front of Sephiroth.
I don't know. I don't think I've seen that. I have everything muted on.
Okay.
Yeah, because
so I won't save that. I won't share this then for you. But if you
it's demo, I played the demo. But
it's the demo. Okay, I'm gonna put this in the Twitch chat real quick, just because this is hysterical.
I might not have seen it though because I muted everything.
Yeah,
unrelated, this is probably worth looking at.
Yeah, it's two different clips, and they loaded up on stuff that Cloud is pushing, and just you see Sephiroth walk off in the distance, and there's just a gazillion boxes there.
Oh my god. Yeah,
watch that somehow play into the speed run.
Yeah.
Where pushing boxes breaks a cutscene and makes it end faster or something. Anyways, we'll get back on topic here, but I think that speaking of Kingdom Hearts 1 in general, I think one of the biggest changes that happened with Kingdom Hearts, I remember the time went down a lot when this happened, but what was the year? I want to say it was 2014, because I think I was either just in college or just finishing up college, but the Kingdom Hearts 1 beginner tournament, I remember really pushed the time on that game down a lot way back when on the PS3 version. Remember that, at the time, it was a way of getting a lot of people in and doing, getting. I want to say that tournament had 100-something entrants in it, and really, really changed the dynamic for that game, if I remember correctly.
That's impressive. Yeah,
I can't fully remember the details of that, but I know I was in it. But they've also, I think, done one more than one at some point. I mean, when you have that many people competitively trying to race each other, it's gonna probably help the run out where people are trying to figure out how to be faster. It's a lot. I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah.
It seemed like a pretty good time for everybody.
One for you, Ghoul. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
One for you. What's the sort of history with the runs at Limit Break? Because I know I've seen you. It's a bit of a staple, as you would expect. Can you remember when it first? Have you run at Limit Break at all, Skip?
Yeah, I know Spike. The one I remember is Spike did a 2FM crit 80% because I was at that one. where we ended the run on like 2 people, 1 controller on the final boss of the game, which is really fun to execute. And then I know I did a 2FM level 1 eventually, and then 1FM level 1 proud.
Oh,
And
nice.
yeah, there's been others too, but I
was gonna say, I think if you go, I'm checking this right now. If you go in the limit breaks,
YouTube
you've actually dropped down a little bit, but for a long time you were the most viewed VOD on the channel. From when you did 1.5.
for the 2FM. Oh,
Yeah,
1.5.
1.5 actually overtook it now, which I'm surprised at. That's
Wow.
a relatively new thing. I guess we've had some longer legs on like the FF10 and the FF8 stuff, but
Makes sense. Yeah, those are obviously very popular runs.
And then the most viewed VOD on the channel, if anybody doesn't know, is it's when Keys did Crystal, and I accidentally jinxed the crap out of him by talking about how Metronome is very funny when it burns you. But yeah, no, I mean, Biz has 2 of the top 8 runs of the channel, and then the 8th run is our good friend Riz doing 1 HD.
Oh.
So Kingdom Hearts obviously very popular. It's been done. I've always joked that like if Limit Break could, we would have Square Enix put out a new Kingdom Hearts every year, just because we kind of have to cycle through, the ones that we have access to. But usually, almost every event has had at least 1 to 2, if not everyone having 2.
Yeah, I remember Adam also ran a bunch of. I think he's done BBS multiple years in a row back in the day, because that game has 3 different stories you could choose from, so it's an easy, bid war option.
Yeah, we've had BBS. Adam did Balloon, aka Dream Drop Distance ones. My fiance did Recon, or sorry, not Recon, Chain of Memories, Riku Story. Way back in the day, Ghost Wheel did Chain of Memories for Sora Story. So both halves of Chain of Memories have been done. Kingdom Hearts 1 has been done on, I believe, both Proud and Beginner. Maybe even Proud Level 1. I don't think Proud Level 1 has been done, but I think the Beginner one was Jiminy's Journal, like, complete run. So, like, everything was done in that run. KH2 has been done in... I don't know if it's been done in Beginner, but I know it's been done in Proud. I'm pretty sure it's been done in Level 1 as well. I think one of those was the infamous Vuelgen incident, wasn't it, Biz? That was you, right?
Yeah, let me clear. I should clear something up on that one, because there seems to be people that were confused about it. The game did not crash. It wasn't a soft locker crash like some people thought. The power brick for the PS2 was loose, and it kind of just cut the power when Vulcan kind of like brushed up against it while he wasn't back. Fortunately, I had a save before that, but people were upset because technically, if you took both parts of the run, it would have been like a live record, I think. I'm pretty sure, but it's like it wasn't enough to, because I ended up obviously beating it eventually anyway. But it didn't bother me at all. But I think people still mess with them sometimes.
It ended up being a really funny story. Like, it was like a deathless run too. Like, it was one of the best speed
It might have been, yeah, I think so.
I always tell people that, like, if you want to see what like action RPG speedrunning is like capable of, that is like one of the best, like, just runs period to watch, because you have the great commentary. I believe Spike and Hobbs helped you out with the commentary there. The gameplay's incredible. There's almost like a great atmosphere to it as well, where it's just like people are having fun. I think Vuelgen bumping the power brick ended up actually almost being a good thing, because it kind of took a lot of the pressure off. I think it's like, well, I mean, what else could go wrong at this point? We literally lost the power to the console.
Which funny that we could have just started the run over. It would have added probably like 15-ish minutes, but regardless, yeah. As far as like the feeling is, yeah, having people like Spike and Jay Hobbs doing commentary is nice. We've always in the past at GDQs as well tried to do a good job with commentary to make it as interesting as possible, because we think that's what can help in those in these kind of runs, to get people more engaged and wondering why we're doing all these wacky things that might not be obvious.
Yeah, no, I've always said that like the Kingdom Hearts runs at marathons generally have some of the best commentary, just in general. Just the community itself tends to be very interesting. These games have so many unique strats. Again, Kingdom Hearts 2, the sheer number of ways the fights have changed over time, but even without that, I mean, heck, there's like everything in that game is viable in some form, it seems like, which is cool, because it means that there's so much variety in what you do in fights and what's good. changes as the run goes along. And then every boss fight itself has its own weird intricacies and things you have to avoid, different HP gates you have to watch out for, and revenge values, and all those like really high-end technical things. But it leads to a really fun watching experience if you have somebody that's capable of breaking it down, which it seems like there are enough people either in the community or adjacent enough to the community that understand it, where you do get that high-level commentary that's also accessible and showcasing why what's going on is very cool and fun. So,
right. And I know with people like Spike at the GDQs, at least the ones I was involved with the commentary for the runs, we would always do like kind of a pre-run, obviously, where we go through it and we would say like, hey, like this is what I think we should say during this fight and this fight. And we don't always obviously, keep to a script like that where we know exactly what we're going to say, but I think it helps a lot to, remind us that, maybe people who only play the game casually might not, understand these like certain things that we kind of just are, we've known for years. So we assume they know, but they probably don't. So it's probably worth mentioning. And someone like Spike does a really good job of breaking it down for like, casual people to understand the basics.
Just to add to that, as somebody who doesn't run RPGs myself, primarily because of the length of them, is watching a run like Kingdom Hearts with the commentary, as you say, the likes of Spike, really makes the experience, to be honest. The runs obviously are technically fascinating. Games are really interesting. And as somebody who's played the games a lot casually and knows the games quite well casually, to see the speedrun tricks, and also not only that, but to have them well explained, definitely some of my favorite marathon runs are Kingdom Hearts runs. I don't know if you remember, either of you, the one that was relatively recent. I think it was just before COVID. It was a very, very good Kingdom Hearts run. But what stood out for me wasn't, unfortunately, the run. It was when the couch broke. But during the middle of the run. But again, brilliantly, and again, that moment just was fantastic, because again, it was just the commentary and the way the runner just carried on, basically. And it was really good. And I love seeing little things like that, because you see the passion of everybody involved. And I really enjoy watching Hearts runs. As I say, the only other run that I remember that really stood out for me was a limit break run. Was slightly off topic. Was Paper Mario. I remember seeing a Paper Mario run with commentary by Ghost Kumo that really stood out, because again, explaining there's a lot going on in that game, and having somebody to really explain and sort of go into the details always, for me, makes the run even more enjoyable. Good commentary, basically. It's a long way of saying that good commentary really improves on the run, in my opinion.
Yeah, fully agreed. Commentary is very important.
For sure. It's definitely, and again, it's not just having good commentary, but it's like I said, the sheer level of technical knowledge that's like also conveyed, but also being accessible is just so good. And don't worry, Kevin, we'll get to some questions towards the end. A little, we always have a little mini Q&A towards the end of the thing. Or the podcast. I guess one thing that I'm always interested in, what are some, like, obviously you play a lot of action RPGs. I know you're playing through Lies of P right now. I know you're a big FF7 fan. I don't know if you've speedrun any of those games, but what are some like transferable skills that you think you took from Kingdom Hearts into other games, if you've ever speedrun other games, or even just playing them casually? Like what are some things that like, would be good for just anybody to learn to just get better at video games in general, you think?
I brought over some of my Kingdom Hearts skills when I went finally into Soulsborne, and I started but casually playing the entirety of that franchise, and then, other ones that are similar, like Strangers of Paradise, or I remember Kena when that came out. That was like a little bit of a Soulsborne 2 action, combat and stuff. A lot of it does transfer over, because you need to know, obviously, how to be like very defensive in action combat. It isn't just about like mashing attack, because if you're playing on higher difficulties, if you have that option and stuff, that doesn't work. In Kingdom Hearts, if you play beginner standard, you can mash through them pretty well. But then you get to like the higher difficulties, especially critical mode. One of the most important things is learning how to be defensive. You need to know if you have roll or dodge roll, do you do that? Do you guard instead? What do you get out of guard? Should I jump? Those kind of skills, I think, transfer over very well, because there's usually some level of like guarding or parrying that can help a lot. And then just knowing like how to kind of read boss attacks to be able to dodge correctly and then learn how to find openings. Kingdom Hearts tends to be a little more cryptic, I think, on, openings compared to something like Soulsborne, but the concept is still there, where I think that kind of skill carries over pretty well.
Interesting, yeah. It definitely makes a lot of sense. I know that, like, it's weird because Soulsborne's in particular, I know, are kind of known for that very slow, kind of almost like heavy movement for like your attacks, your dodge rolls, things like that. And Kingdom Hearts is almost like the opposite in a way. It's very fast, very flashy. You almost don't even necessarily recognize, you mentioned like it's almost more cryptic. I think that makes a lot of sense though, like just the sheer speed of the game, and you're almost not necessarily watching a boss in the same way. So it's very interesting to see those kind of like balance back and forth, especially almost sounds a bit more like, Kingdom Hearts 1-ish, where it's a much slower. I always joke that like Kingdom Hearts 1 is Street Fighter, Kingdom Hearts 2 is Guilty Gear. As like the sheer like pacing of it, but like it really does kind of fit with how the speed of those games tends to actually play out in action.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3 does the same thing too, or it's actually plays even faster. So yeah, you're completely right on that. Like Kingdom Hearts is a more fast-paced game like Soulsborne, but that's probably why my favorite Soulsborne is Sekiro, because that's very fast-paced. So it's a lot of fun for me.
I think it's interesting, as you say, you mentioned the sort of difference in speed there, and this is just me being an old fogey, but I definitely prefer KH1 in terms of the mechanics. I find certainly KH3, when I first played it, was a little bit much for me personally. Obviously, everybody has their own personal preferences, but I preferred KH1 and still do, really, in terms of the mechanics. But I think also KH2 is a nice balance in the middle. So it's good. There's something for everyone, I think.
Yeah, the main ones definitely play pretty similar enough where you can interchange between them and feel comfortable enough. If the side ones go a little bit more like change things up, a lot of them were designed for mobile too, or handheld. So that's probably why.
Speaking of Kingdom Hearts 1, actually, there's actually a good conversation there. Kingdom Hearts 1 has a lot of like weird platformer elements to it as well, and some of those do end up coming up in the speedrun quite a bit. Is that like, does that make the run more enjoyable? Does it kind of make it a different change of pace when you're going into that one? Is that something that's just like it's a part of the run, so you do it, but it's not something you're super excited for? Or is that just kind of?
I personally have fun with Kingdom Hearts 1 platforming in the run. It's the casual reception back in the day for it, before speedrunning, was that it was terrible, probably because the PS2 camera controls were also not great. But the PS3 version really illustrated, especially in speedrunning, that it's very controllable. Like, your level of control over sort of in buffer jumping and stuff like that is really solid. So the platforming is actually not bad in that game. And Kingdom Hearts 2 kind of nuked most of the platforming, unfortunately. So, a lot of that run is both basically just running forward or quick running forward as fast as possible with, some jumping here and there. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 goes back into, needing good movement again with platforming. So they brought it back a bit. But I think they're fun aspects,
One of my jokes when I was a kid was that Kingdom Hearts 1, I got lost all the time as a kid, having no idea where to go, wasn't necessarily obvious. I remember like Halloween Town one time, I accidentally, I think, spent like an hour because I couldn't figure out one of the doors was actually like to go talk to, what's his name was actually a door. So I was like, I have no idea where to go and what to do. And then there's no map in Kingdom Hearts 2 for anybody that doesn't know. So I literally just walked around for hours having no idea where to go. And then Kingdom Hearts 2, they gave it a map. And there's no need for a map because if you hold forward, you would go to the next story beat usually. I think that was another thing where Square overcorrected from complaints, is because Deep Jungle, I think, was the most notorious story trigger area where it was really hard. You would just loop around and around until eventually you figure out, I was supposed to go into the tent, or I went to this area too soon. So I think in Kingdom Hearts 2, they decided to kind of like dumb it down to the point where you pretty much can't go the wrong way because they will block you from going the wrong way a lot, which is also I don't think that was the right way to go. You probably should have went a little more in the middle. And I think Kingdom Hearts 3, if I remember correctly, did a decent enough job at allowing you to do some level of exploring while not absolutely or also not forcing you to go exactly to where you need to go always. So yeah, it's different across the series.
Yeah, I would definitely say I agree with you on that. I think Kingdom Hearts 3 strikes the happy medium, really. But I remember playing Kingdom Hearts 1 the first time, and I couldn't do climbing cave section in Deep Jungle. I just couldn't do it. I don't know why, because every time I've gone back, I mean, fairly recently I played it through again, and I managed it no bother. Like, it didn't even register that it was a problem. But I do remember when I first played it, I could not do it. I ended up having to get somebody else to do it for me because I just couldn't get some of those jumps.
The camera there is
maybe they've made it easier. Maybe they've made it easier in the remake, perhaps, because it's the remakes that I've played. Yeah, PS4 I've played, and it was the PS2 that I had. So maybe it's a bit easier now. I don't know. But
well, there's some really fun behind the scenes stuff with Kingdom Hearts 1 as well that I know, like with the 1.5 version, where I don't know if you know this, Tim, but they don't have the source code for original Kingdom Hearts 1 anymore. It was just straight up gone. So 1.5 is basically, from my knowledge, they recreated the entirety of Kingdom Hearts 1 using Kingdom Hearts 2's engine, which I believe is part of the reason why the camera controls are completely different. You know, in Kingdom Hearts 1, I believe the camera controls were on the triggers R and L, and you would actually use the menu with the right stick, if I remember correctly.
I remember hearing that they took the basically like an ISO of it and then modded it or something like that. Because they lost the source code for it, but I think they just probably did it through modding the ISO or something like that. I don't know. That's what I heard, but they didn't make it from the ground up. I know that.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, that could be as well. But yeah, I would always heard that they took the Kingdom Hearts 2 engine for it and just kind of retrofitted Kingdom Hearts 1 into it. Maybe they did a little bit of both. Maybe they took the ISO, ripped the assets out, put those in, and then they used the Kingdom Hearts 2 engine because they were familiar with it, made it easier to work with. So
maybe one day they'll actually tell us.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the fun things about enjoying particularly Japanese media is you don't always get super clear pictures of what's going on behind the scenes. But yeah, there's a big reason like why game preservation is such a big deal is that there are so many games like that where they don't have the ability to access the original source code. I know that like pretty famously Final Fantasy VIII is another example where it is not there anymore. So it's why all the ports now are based on the IDOS PC port, because it's what they have access to that they can work with. It's really unfortunate for a lot of games. I think one of the biggest ones that I know is it's one of the most expensive games of all time, but Panzer Dragoon Saga on the Sega Saturn. There is no source code remaining for that game. They do not know where it is, and Saturn games are particularly difficult to emulate. So that is a game that will probably never see a re-release in our lifetime. And it is one of the most unique games. It's very interesting. It's very fascinating, and it's about $1,000 to $2,000 now, I want to say, if not more, just because of the way that game was packaged and the general low sell-through rate of the Sega Saturn as a console in general. So, but yeah, so some little fun tidbits for anybody that doesn't know some of the history of the Kingdom Hearts series, though. So yeah, the Kingdom Hearts 1 on 1.5 is not the same as the old PS2 version, but yeah, that explains like some of the differences in like camera controls. It's funny because actually when I first played it, I actually was kind of mad about that. I always liked the right stick, working the menu a little bit, just from my years playing like Phantasy Star Online, where the right stick controlling the menu just made a lot of sense to me. But obviously there's also a lot of issues with that as far as the platforming sections go and being able to control the camera more efficiently and all that, other important stuff that I just didn't recognize when I was a kid.
Well, it definitely explains probably why I found the Deep Jungle easier when I've played it more recently. But yeah, they're very fascinating that about the source code. Just very, very quickly, a slight tangent here then. Obviously, it's probably relevant to a lot of stuff. Online cloud services in terms of games, from an archaeology perspective. Obviously, there are quite a few games that if they're delisted, then that's it. You don't own the game. And I just think that's something that obviously is not so much an issue at the moment, but it could be an issue. And obviously RPGs are susceptible to that as well.
Yeah, I mean, even before this podcast, Biz, you do so much with Kingdom Hearts in general. There are a lot of Kingdom Hearts games that were mobile first that just straight up can't really be played anymore. I know that you said you played one a pretty decent amount. The other one you just kind of, thankfully, I think the cutscenes for all these have probably been preserved on YouTube, because I know that there's a lot of big Final Fantasy, all the Final Fantasy lore heads, but also a lot of Kingdom Hearts lore heads.
Yeah.
So, have you played any of those? I know there's one coming out pretty soon as well. Are you excited for that at all? What's the
I'm not
what's
sure.
the
I'd
lore on
say-
the Biz playing mobile games?
I'm not sure I would say, okay, well, so I played Union Cross for a bit, and like 100 missions into it, I was actually pretty bored with it. I'm not a big mobile person, so like it's like a different type of gaming. So it's, you know, like I don't, if for what I play Kingdom Hearts for, going to a mobile version of it is not why I play Kingdom Hearts generally, but at least you could watch the cutscenes, you know, like for Union Cross, you can access the cutscenes in the game, you just can't play the game. And Dark Road is, you know, same deal. So Missing Link, I have no doubt, might end up suffering like a similar fate, but hopefully it'll last a little longer. I'm like relatively excited to look at, you know, just to see where they go with the story, because they, you know, they're in a whole new basically arc now, or a new saga. So they have to really try hard to, you know, grip people into it. And this is going to be the first game since the end of the, you know, the Xehanort saga where you know, it's going to obviously be very important whatever happens in that game. Probably, and it will be out before, or should be out before Kingdom Hearts 4, I imagine. So a lot of it's interesting. I'm not super excited for the gameplay because it's still going to be like mobile, but you do have to accept that they're just gonna, those mobile games are gonna play very different, you know, and if they're gotchas, they're intentionally designed differently to, you know, try to get you to spend.
So one thing we haven't talked about, I don't know how experienced you are with this, but Kingdom Hearts 2 obviously has a thriving randomizer scene right now, and have you? I'm assuming you've at least dabbled with it at least a little bit.
Yes.
Has that helped you get better at Kingdom Hearts 2 in general? Is it just a completely different skill set? Like, what has that ended up doing for Kingdom Hearts 2 speedrunning as a whole?
I don't think rando helps the any percents much, because it's just too different. Because the best it would do is if you're not familiar with running the game, it can obviously prepare you for the other, you know, type of run. But rando is mostly about, you know, trying to like learning how to use minimal tools against bosses. You know, for example, like in a level 1 run, we might rely heavily on like reflect on a bunch of fights late game. But if we don't have reflect in rando, then you have to be like, well, what am I going to do now? And you have to start getting creative and coming up with like how to use like drives or summons, or, you know, just moving around differently. Or if you have guard, you know, stuff like that. It makes it pretty fun to, you know, try to figure out what's the, you know, like what's the bare minimum I can do or have for these bosses to get by. So I think it's a pretty different skill set. Like some of it's transferable, but I don't think people like say if they start with rando, or I don't know it necessarily if it goes back and forth that much though. I haven't seen anything from rando be like used in the crit or level 1 for any percents.
That makes sense. I was just wondering if like you accidentally somebody got like a random like loadout or something, used it against the boss, went, oh wow, that went really, really well. I'm surprised. Maybe we should try this in the actual speedrun, but that also makes sense as well, that just because the skill set is so different and so all over the place that, you know, maybe when that would happen, you're like, well, I also had this as well, which doesn't really transfer, and this didn't transfer.
Yeah, I think anything that's found has been ended up to be slower anyway. So that's been a little bit of the issue, because like, you know, we try, you know, we generally know what tools we have at all times, obviously in the any percent run. So
right,
you know, we've basically tested like kind of everything in terms of like actual like tools. It's just a matter of like the sequence of it that makes a big difference.
Yeah, and obviously you can't do anything like the skip in Land of Dragons or anything like that, because you don't have access to like, what is it, like you need like double jump plus glide to get over that.
Yeah, the run can't do that, but rando sets up for that, because you can, the trigger's actually like not really high up, you can skip over it, but in the run you can't.
As soon as you guys find the infinite height glitch, we will see some new changes there probably.
Maybe, yeah. Which is, yeah, because there's not really triggers we can skip normally in the run anyway, so you know, that's one of the other things about running Kingdom Hearts 2 that's been kind of unique, is that those games are very well made and hard to break. Everything we find is just doing the fight faster by using our strongest tools best we can. It's not like we found a glitch that like, you know, like one shots a boss or something. So historically, Kingdom Hearts 2 has been pretty resilient to breaking the game. The biggest glitch that can be done in the different categories is the core skip, which allows you to skip the super bosses in the gold crown route. And there's different category for not doing that and doing it, but it can't be used in the any %. So it's just like it's the one out of bounds that we have found in the history of running it that has had a use.
That's pretty impressive, actually, considering again the age of the game, and as you say, it's quite a solidly programmed game. Because you do see a lot of these games that, well, sometimes they're broken many different ways, and obviously, Kingdom Hearts is fairly solid from that perspective.
A lot of games have been broken with a lot fewer eyes than the Kingdom Hearts 2 has, for sure. So, I mean, how many runners have like done Kingdom Hearts 2 at this point? Like probably there's got to be almost 200 runs on that leaderboard by now, I imagine, if not more.
I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't looked lately at how many, but yeah, like beginner or crit or whatever, or even 1FM beginner also has that's a really accessible category. So
I think the only major glitch that I know of that's done is only in was it Cavern of Remembrance? Yeah,
that's the core skip. Yeah, so that's for Gold Crown.
Yeah, but like that's like it though. There's really not much else I can think of unless you want to talk about like it's not even really a glitch, just like some stuff that seems to be unintentional, like duck flare being different in literally every version of the game.
It's not it's a little more nuanced. So for the duck flare thing, so duck flare's finisher lasts longer in the PS3 English version and PS4/5 PC English version. That's the only difference between them, is for some reason the duck flare finisher lasts longer, which we have to assume is not intentional, because that's a really bizarre thing for them to do as an only change, is make this one limit last longer for no reason. I don't think we ever figured out why, but there's that, and then there's other unintentional or possibly unintentional mechanics, like abusing getting drive back faster by doing like a magnet into Trinity limits major drive, so enemies are like bouncing around it and giving you more hits. That's technically not a glitch. It seems to be working as intended, but we'll abuse things like that because the devs might not have intended it, but it's still not a glitch, so we don't really classify it as that.
Yeah, I just love the. If you haven't seen like the current version of Duck Flare on like the PC version, it's very funny because it just goes on for like so much longer than you would expect.
It melts bosses though. It's funny.
That's why I like that we get it really late, and there's a lot of end game fights where Sora's by himself anyway, so we can't use it. Because it would probably be a pretty boring run if we got it early and then we just spammed out on every fight.
Have you played the Switch versions by any chance? Did you pick those up just to see what they were like?
Yeah, I was not very impressed. It's very hard to play an action game with input delay like that. I did it for fun, quote unquote fun, and it was. I'm disappointed because the Switch could probably easily handle 1 and 2 without a doubt, the ports, but they decided to throw it on the cloud where it's just not a fun time.
That's okay. Switch 2, when that comes out, that's going to have the actual like physical versions you can play and download to the Switch, I believe. Fingers crossed they actually revisit that.
Well, at least it's on PC now on Epic Games too, so
yeah, definitely a lot of interesting options there.
I tell people don't play it on Switch if you can avoid it. Like if that's your only option, then sure, if you want to experience Kingdom Hearts, but otherwise, try any of the other options that are just objectively better.
Thankfully, it's not difficult to play nowadays, which is good. It's no longer locked to just the one console.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very happy, especially after most of their patchwork, where they fixed up a lot of the glaring problems the ports originally had, especially on the PS3 version. The PS3 version is just forever scuffed because they didn't set it up to be patched, and the load times are the worst on PS3 for it. So it's just an all around not good time as well. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how they patched it.
A lot of interesting stuff with that, just from what I understand, just because, like I said, I mentioned it earlier, but like just weird Blu-ray issues because you can't install that game at all, which is also one of the reasons I believe that you can't really patch it, but also just means that like you have issues with loading. I remember that you used to have to like pause during summons to try to like cut out animation time because Sora would just sit there like clutching his necklace for like 4 seconds if you didn't pause.
It was a big thing for drives because you would have to pause buffer while it's loading the drive so that you don't want to just randomly come out of it and then get hit. You want to pause it so right after you can do the punish you intended to do.
Yeah, and even there also, like, I believe if I remember correctly in Kingdom Hearts 2, when you go into a drive, isn't there almost like, again, I always like equate Kingdom Hearts 2 to Guilty Gear, but like there's like a burst effect. There's like a hitbox attached to you going into the drive, and if you didn't pause buffer the load, you would hit the drive and get the burst hit off, and you would take the damage, but they wouldn't be stunned long enough for the actual load to happen. So you would just waste like basically almost a combo starter out of going into the drive form.
That's why we had the pause buffer in the PS3 version. The PS2 version, I think I can't remember where. Like on Final Zenless, you probably would do that when you're going into limit form. But yeah, I mean, the good news is the PS4 and 5 version and PC are so fast that it's basically instant now to go into drive. So it's always an easy follow up. But yeah, that was a problem on PS3 for sure, though.
Yeah. So many cool things about these games, by the way. Again, if you haven't ever gone back and checked it out, I highly recommend. All you got to do is go to the RPG Limit Break YouTube if you're not already there. Go sort by popular and just check out any of Biz's runs that show up on the top, and you'll see some just awesome Kingdom Hearts speedrunning gameplay.
Lots of good stuff there.
I guess, do you have any other kind of like little fun speedrunning tidbits of these games that have come up over the years that kind of come to mind as like, fun little things to go over real quick before we get into like a quick Q&A with the chat?
I guess I have we were talking on the how Kingdom Hearts 2 is hard to break. Well, technically Kingdom Hearts 2 Japanese version, the original, was easy to break because Trinity Limit can, if you set it up correctly, at one point in the run, it will one-shot basically every boss because of a glitch that they fixed after that version. I remember like Riz used to run that category, KH2J. And then Kingdom Hearts 1J also kind of had some weird stuff. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Sephiroth fight where he has that invisible HP bar, right?
No, like, I've never heard of
it. He's the only fight in KH1 that has like an invisible HP bar because it's a whole extra HP bar, but they didn't really code it in to be like a different color or something, so you can't really tell. So a lot of people probably think they're not doing damage for like the first X amount of minutes of the fight. But the Japanese version of KH1 original, there's multiple endgame bosses that have that extra HP bar, but they nerfed them in the English KH1 where now they have that like a purple pink bar and they show properly, but Sephiroth still has the secret extra HP bar.
I mean, that's kind of perfect, though. Let's be real.
It's Sephiroth, isn't it? Yeah.
It's
like that.
It's like the big endgame super boss, and you keep hitting him, and it just doesn't even look like you're damaging him. Like,
yeah, it's a little mean. I think they just didn't really. I think it's just odd. I don't know, from a programming perspective, that they wanted to like mess with you that much, where they didn't look like they wanted to put in the effort to code another HP bar.
Oh gosh.
Or display it anyway.
It's kind of funny. One little tangent before we get into the Q&A, but I play a lot of the Final Fantasy TCG, and they'll put the Kingdom Hearts art in the TCG for Final Fantasy, but they don't have the rights to say it's from Kingdom Hearts. So actually one of the best cards in the game is actually Kingdom Hearts Sephiroth, but it doesn't actually say what he's from. It just says, but like you look at the art, it's like very clearly the Kingdom Hearts art. Same thing, like there's like the Tidus, the Waka, the Selfie, all those, like the kid versions of those are all in it. Kind of a very fun, little silly tidbit, but yeah, let's go ahead. Let's dive into some questions from chat. I believe we have a couple. I believe one of the first ones I remember seeing was, how good is the puppy at sequence breaking or like barrier skipping to get out of the pen behind you?
He hasn't succeeded yet, but he doesn't really try. But he knows how to. He escaped out of our backyard a little bit, a few times at first, until he just found the holes basically, and he's an escape artist dog.
Shortcuts.
Oh man. Let's see. So mechanics from the DS games don't always make it over, since the DS games all had different devs. I know that Days, I believe, was made by I think that was Hand. I know that Chain of Memories was made by Jupiter. They went on to make The World Ends With You before going on to make a bunch of Across games. Do you have any mechanic from those that you'd like to see returning at some point? from the DS games, Biz?
That's the thing. Is like to me, because of the way the reason I play Kingdom Hearts, it mostly feels like a downgrade to play the handheld. So it's like trying to think. Like for example, I don't want Command Deck to come back in terms of like standard gameplay.
Yeah, for sure.
Which was like BBS and DP. And yeah, a little bit of. But Days was pretty good about it though. So.
I mean, if I can think of anything for myself, I think that like having the multiple characters in Days would be pretty cool. Where you could go fight other bosses as different characters, and different like there's like full on co-op where you could like play. Apparently, there's actually like a very very small scene that plays Days as a fighting game because you can actually hit each other and turn on friendly fire, and you can beat the crap out of each other as different characters from Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, BBS had multiplayer too, so just people want that.
So like that would be definitely like one of the cooler things. But like I think in general, I think the combat and gameplay in the console ones is it's a lot more refined. So I would generally probably stay with those, just given that I think there's just so much more you can do, and I think a lot of stuff like Command Deck was almost intended as like a way to like get around some of the limitations.
Either that or experimenting. Yeah, it's hard to tell.
And even as much as like I really do like the gameplay loop in like Game Boy Advance Chain of Memories and stuff like that as well. I think it plays very well for that system, but I don't think I would want them to make every gameplay like Chain of Memories either. So
yeah, if a card game like that, I think works well for a side game, but yeah, I wouldn't want it in a main one.
Maybe as like a little bonus mode or something.
Right.
What's your top moment in the game speedrunning that felt impossible casually that became very trivial in a speedrun of it?
Question.
I mean, I have one right off the top of my head, but I want to see if I can come up with a better one real quick, but I probably can't. Doing level 1 Genie Jafar is one of the worst level 1 fights in the game because it's basically you're just flipping a coin if you survive. But in the run, we have it down to a science. It's super easy fight. You just have to be good at buffering jump attacks pretty relatively fast, and it's just like it's like a breather fight. It's not as intense as it was casually. Casually, people struggle with that fight a lot, but speedrunning kind of just manhandles the fight.
One thing I meant to get to, we'll go back to question in a second. How is Hades Escape these days? Is it still awful? It's
still bad. We found some things, that kind of help, but if that fight wants you to die and kill the run, it will. Olympus is still a very random world in the run. It's definitely one of the two probably worst parts of the run as a whole. If you're if you care about consistency.
It's also I think one of the relatively long worlds in the game as well. But yeah, if anybody that hasn't seen Hades Escape, the sequence in right after you fight Hades the first time in Olympus, and you can't damage him and you have to run away. That whole sequence, Hades is immune, throws fireballs that either one-shots you or gets you basically to 1 health.
Level 1, 2 shots it, yeah.
And then also there's because I don't know, it one-shot me when I did it casually because I didn't find the fire charm, which I think you actually get in the speed run, so you don't die there. Don't you do something like increase resistance to fire?
That's a strat, but on level 1, the fire, even without the resistance, the fireball can't one-shot you unless something else hits you first. If something chips you a bit, then it will one-shot you.
And then there's also a gazillion enemies. There's one of the big fat guys you have to hit from behind, so you also
he can one-shot you.
You have just all these enemies everywhere. You got to dodge and handle very specific ways, while also just dodging these stupid random fireballs at Hades. And
it's a very hard fight to manage because there's just so many variables. And casually, the secret for level 1 there is to kind of camp out your MP bar and then do Orin's Limit a lot because you're invincible during limits. But the speedrun can't do that, spam that because we got to go fast. So we have to use Bat Cry reaction command because that does a lot of damage on level 1 for that part. But it's risky because you're wide open while you're falling down during that. So if Hades is on his game, he's going to hit you with a fireball on your way down. And if you already took damage beforehand, you're probably going to die. So it's not, I would say we win it way more than we lose it, but it still has a decent chance of killing the run. Maybe 1 out of 10 chance probably of killing your run.
Which for a run of your caliber is actually relatively high.
Yeah, it's not, yeah.
Yeah.
So, Another question. I know that or from the chat. So used to be when you guys did randomizer, used to do emulators. Is that those generally work pretty well for most of the games in the series? If you wanted to mess with them, I know that personally, I've used emulators a lot for learning speedruns in the past. Where oh, I died. I'll hit the load a save state, try again. Now I can kind of practice the fight. Is that generally something that works well with Kingdom Hearts games, or is it just kind of one of those things where it's you can do it if you want to, but also you can just play on PC and the loads are fast enough? It doesn't really matter.
I would recommend PC because the emulator for PS2 has input delay no matter what kind of settings you try. You can cut it down a good amount, but it's still going to have input delay, so it's kind of hard to get down learning timings for it. It's good for, like you said, save stating. It could help. Where if you want to save state a specific part of the fight to test something, you can easily do that, because retrying an entire fight, like Hades Escape, for example, maybe you want to practice the last tier. That would be good for emulator, but for actual learning things, I would recommend PC version, or consoles are all fine too now to do, because you have 99 save slots, so you can make a save slot before almost basically every fight. So not it's relatively easy to practice the game that way. It's not like a lot of other games where it's a very annoying to get to some fights to practice without emulator save states.
Question, would you generally recommend playing Dream Drop Distance on 3DS, or would you rather play it on the PC HD version?
Yeah, console PC version for sure. The handheld version of that. They actually made it more fun because, for example, regular enemies on the handheld version don't really stagger, and they kind of fix that up a little bit, and it's just more convenient to play on console. And it's a pretty good port. It's just I don't enjoy the game as a whole because of balancing problems and whatnot and command deck. But I don't recommend going to the 3DS for that experience.
Yeah, I think I had someone describe some of the balance issues in that game as it is almost better to cast Balloon than it is to heal when you're on 1 health.
I agree with that, yeah.
Because why do you need to heal if you're killing all the enemies anyway?
Well, Balloon Rose Busted, you can get a lot of it really fast in that game, and it launches a bunch of projectiles that home in on the enemies and hard staggers most of them and does a lot of damage, so spamming those is the way to win the game, basically.
Spam Balloon really to win, yeah.
Best mechanic in Kingdom Hearts that's the least explored casually?
Good question.
Probably got to be summons. Summons are criminally underrated in all 3 mainline games, not just Kingdom Hearts 1, 2, or 3. Even in 3, when it came out, we were not exploring them enough. Other than there's 2 obvious ones that are really good don't require much effort. But yeah, but casually, Kingdom Hearts 2 didn't really help teach you what they do unless you go into a weird sub menu to tell you how they could help you. So a lot of people write them off as not necessarily being useful if they whip them out on a boss that it doesn't really work on. But they are incredibly good.
The other thing in 2 that I remember is that because it uses your limit gauge, and limit gauge is the cool, fun, flashy thing you're doing casually, you don't want to spend your meter on, I don't want to summon Chicken Little. Chicken Little sucks, as opposed to I can pull out the second Keyblade and punch the crap out of things. Yeah,
for drives, drives are more fun casually than summons, I would argue, is probably the common opinion. So yeah, summons are definitely not appreciated as being as good as they actually are, and speedruns break open how ridiculous they can be. Stitch in KH2, you're invincible to basically all physical attacks while he's out. He will block them. So that's he restores your MP fairly often, so that and then Chicken Little brings in all mob enemies that can be pulled in pretty consistently, so that's very incredibly useful tools.
I'm a little sad Stitch has started falling out of favor in runs. I used to always love the memes of "Lick me, you nerd, come on!"
In level 1, we don't pick him up anymore because he's just too random and not as fast as our other options. But yeah, he's a really strong summon though casually.
I know in Kingdom Hearts 1, a lot of people will realize Tinkerbell's crazy because it's regen with a revive on a stick if you happen to die.
When I was playing Kingdom Hearts 1 originally, I relied on Tinkerbell completely, and then I was screwed at the end of the game when you couldn't actually use summons when you had Sora on his own. But a couple of the summons to point out that you were mentioning, Kingdom Hearts 1, that are relevant to the speedrun. I know the speedrun uses Simba, and I also know it uses Dumbo for some skips.
Yeah.
They're the two that I remember seeing.
Simba for sure has an interesting mechanic. We use them to clear out some waves, especially at the end game. There's the hardest gauntlet of enemies, what we call final rest, is where you have like 7 or whatever amounts of waves, and Simba can clear all of them in one shot if you set him up correctly. So he's like a really easy option for that. And Dumbo's used for skips. That one wasn't known a long time ago. It's like, I don't want to say recent because it has been like a handful of years, but we eventually figured out Dumbo when we can elevate ourselves with him, and then when you dismiss him, Sora jumps off of him and then can grab a ledge. So those are obviously like, that's an unintended use, but it's still really cool to be able to do that in a speedrun.
I forget, I don't know if this is still done, but I remember on level 1 you used to have to use every single summon at Final Rest was like the normal strat that y'all would use in the speedrun. I think literally every summon would get used. You would like start with Simba, wipe out a bunch of enemies.
The ones we pick up, yeah.
Yeah, I think you even summoned Bambi at one point to like get MP to be able to spam summons more on, or spells more on.
That was an older route for level 1 because we don't need to get Bambi anymore. But Mushu is also pretty busted at level 1 because of the way EXP0 works in the ports. Mm-hmm. Casually, Mushu's not that great, but in a speedrun, he's pretty busted if you know how to use him. Like, he just shreds HP bars.
Yeah, I remember actually that used to be a big, interesting point of rooting discussion in Proud Mode runs, because you would get Mushu to solo bosses by using the EXP0 and abusing the fact that like there's a minimum, I believe it's just there's a minimum damage cap you can do.
Yeah. And
Mushu does a lot of hits very quickly. But because you went on EXP0, you would be cutting out EXP from the boss, which was a big chunk of EXP. So you had to balance the fact that your future fights would be slower by the fact that you use Mushu to kill a boss. It's actually a really interesting rooting discussion.
It is, and we did solve it eventually. It didn't take long to figure it out, but yeah, we determined that the extra levels we would gain weren't worth the time loss of just not nuking down the bosses repeatedly with Mushu. So, the EXP wasn't that worth it for regular Proud. Level 1, obviously, we always have it on, so Mushu's always the answer there.
More questions from the chat. We have, when and if Verum Rex comes out as a game, would it be considered Kingdom Hearts of Final Fantasy?
Well, when that trailer came out for Kingdom Hearts 3 with the Verum Rex, I believe a lot of people just assumed it was going to be, Final Fantasy, what was it called? I forgot the name of it. But the 15 one. I'm blanking on
versus
that.
13?
Versus 13, yes. So that people thought it was going to be that. And then we got the Remind post-Yozora fight trailer, which basically literally is a shot-for-shot of a scene in the one of the Versus trailers, which blew a lot of people's mind. So yeah, I'd say Nomura seems like he's kind of just fooling around with that idea a lot now, of bringing back Versus in some way through Kingdom Hearts.
Nomura is a very interesting person sometimes, we'll put it that way. So with speedrunning, what's the deal with playing on easy or in Kingdom Hearts terms, beginner? Is it frowned upon at all? Is it just a thing that people do? What would you say about beginner speedruns in general?
If we're talking speedruns only, there's nothing wrong with doing beginner. The beginner's a different type of run because you don't have to worry usually about dying in the fights. Instead, you're like trying to like micromanage everything else that doesn't involve survival. So losing like 10 seconds on a fight is like lethal for that run because you're expected to go like incredibly fast. While on like, Proud mode, you're expected some things are going to go wrong and slow you down. You might have to like cure a little bit here and there or jump to safety. I tell people if you're getting into running, do beginner mode first. You'll learn the fundamentals of the game first. If you jump into the hardest difficulty, you're going to struggle learning fundamentals while running around trying to survive while trying to still do the strats.
So I don't think you develop like bad habits from that, like because you're so focused on surviving that you're not actually be focusing on the traditional things you're looking for to speedrun, like DPS and understanding how the bosses work.
Yeah, and also beginner mode does have a little bit of a stigma to it because it's a very easy casual mode. You can mostly mash through most of the games like on beginner mode. So I know with GDQs we always try to, and even RPG limit breaks, we try to pitch the higher difficulties because we think that's better viewer reception to play the higher difficulties. that most of us were able to handle both beginner and the highest difficulty. So we figured might as well go to the one that's going to have better viewer reception than the stigma that beginner mode tends to have casually on Kingdom Hearts.
I'll say, and to note, I believe a lot of the best beginner mode runners are also just the best proud mode proud or critical mode runners anyway. So there's a lot of overlap in skill set, even if they are different runs. That
used to be the case. Now I don't think any of the current like level 1 2FM crit runners really run beginner at all. But I mean, I imagine it would carry over. If you went backwards to beginner, I'm sure they would all, get top times, no problem.
What quality of life feature or aspect of Kingdom Hearts 3 would you like to see them do more with in Kingdom Hearts 4?
Well, being someone who loves super bosses, I want to see them bring back a bunch of fun super bosses that they did in Remind, because those are pretty expertly designed super bosses, and I was glad to see them go back to that. I overall, I think, like giving you good air defensive options was a great idea, because in Kingdom Hearts 3 you get stuck in the air a lot, so that helps a lot try to alleviate, like being stuck in the air, is being able to, air slide into a guard immediately or into anything else really, and be able to like get out of danger fast. So I want to see them keep doing things like that. And the biggest thing I want them to do in 4 is to balance the game better. The base game is a little bit of a misbalanced mess in 3, which they never patched for some reason. So that's one of my wants, but that's not what I want to see return as another,
To be fair,
the super bosses are good.
So to be fair, I think that's like a weird, like Kingdom Hearts, something that people don't realize is that like the version of Kingdom Hearts 2 that most people play now is like version 4 or 5 balance-wise. Nomura almost is like Sakurai in a way. He can't release a game without balancing it and repatching it and whatever else.
Yeah, for example, in Kingdom Hearts 2, every version of Kingdom Hearts 2 buffs Reflect. The KH2J Reflect does like chip damage. Then in English, it does decent. And then in 2FM, they buffed it even again. So for some reason, now it does even more damage when it's already a very strong move. So yeah, they make weird choices sometimes.
I mean, and that goes for like a lot of Nomura's games. I know that, personal game I've dabbled with a lot. Every version of The World Ends With You has completely different damage numbers for how pins work and stuff. So, but, yeah, I think that's probably a decent spot to wrap it up with. Biz, thank you so much. It's been a fantastic conversation. It's been so much fun having you.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? Where can people find you for the future? Like if they want to go watch some awesome Kingdom Hearts speedrunning, or probably some Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in the future, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, well, once again, thank you for having me. I figured this would be a lot of fun, and it definitely was. I stream on Twitch, every week, and you can go to my Twitch, Bizkit047. I also, of course, upload videos to YouTube. Like I have, I put guides and analysis for Kingdom Hearts stuff, pretty frequently over the years on there. And when Kingdom Hearts 4 is around the corner, I'm sure I'll have a lot more to throw on there. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. Tim, thanks again for co-hosting. We do have a couple of announcements real quick. If you guys all go to either our Discord or our website, we do have the COVID policy for Limit Break 2024. It's been revised a little bit from previous years, so go check that out if you have any intent or plans to attend. Submissions for Limit Break 2024 are currently open. They close at the end of next week. So if you have any runs that you want to offer for the event, I don't know, Biz, if you're planning on offering for the event or not, go ahead and get those in so that we can get those reviewed. All the details are right there on the stream, or you can go check out our Twitter. I believe it's the pinned message on Twitter right now. It's also all the details will be communicated through our Discord channels and any other things like that. Also, we do have something kind of exciting coming up. Normally we do these every other week, but we're doing our first ever bonus episode next week. It's going to be myself, Heroic Spirit Gamer, who is my boss for the channel, and we're going to sit on, and we're going to talk Final Fantasy VII, basically everything to do with FF7 story, what we're excited about with Rebirth. So much fun stuff. Every time we've done this, we'll literally be at the end of a staff call and we'll start talking Rebirth, and next thing I know, an hour and a half have come by, and we thought about making a normal episode of the show, and I thought I didn't really want to do that as a normal episode because I don't want anybody to any future guests to go like, well, that episode went like 3 hours. I don't want that to happen to me. No. This is going to be a bonus episode, so free extra content, and should be a ton of fun. So much to talk about. So Rebirth is just such an exciting game, just in general. So I'm sure that Biz, I know you have everything with it, muted on Twitter. So should be a lot of fun. Super excited for that. And I believe that is just about everything that we have. Again, thank you all so much for hanging out. It's been an absolutely great time, and we will see you all in the next one.
Thank you very much. Take care, folks.
Bye.